Welcome to this latest video on the nowRail model railway control system, and today we're going to be looking at the sketch upgrades. Now this week version 1.5.0 came out and I'm already working on version 1.6, and of course there's always that issue when a new version comes out, what happens to your old sketches? So on a very cluttered workbench, I have one of my touchscreen controllers, and sorry about all the clutter. There's a whole load of development work going on, but it's this item that needs to be upgraded. Now the reason for this is on my test bench, my DCC-EX system, my master clock, has been upgraded to version 1.4.4, I think that one's running, and that has encryption. Now this is an old control panel off my layout, and of course this now needs to be able to run with this version of nowRail. Now I don't know about you, but whenever I get that dreaded message on my computer that Windows wants an update, or on the iPad, you know, the iPad wants an update, it fills my heart with dread, because I always start to think, what's this going to break? And one of the great things about nowRail is, on the whole, you do not need to upgrade. So let's just think that one through. The reason I'm upgrading this is obviously I develop nowRail, and in 1.4.4 encryption came out, and obviously I have to upgrade my layout to the latest version because someone's got to do all of the testing. However, if this was just a layout that was at home, if I was just a nowRail user, I'll be honest, I would not have updated my DCC-EX system. I'd have left it exactly as it was, and I think it was on about version 0.7, and this was on version 0.9. And those two items have been running very happily for well over a year, and there is absolutely no need to update them unless I needed to use some new features. So one of the things just to be aware of with the nowRail system is, in general, there is no need to update any of your sketches unless you want to use a new feature that has come out in a later version of nowRail. If you don't need the new feature, leave the system exactly as it was. Now, to show you why you don't always need to update when a new version comes out, I'm going to show you a little bit behind the scenes of how nowRail works. So in general, in nowRail, there are two files that you don't tend to touch: nowRail.cpp and nowRail.h. And these, if you like, are the magic sauce in the background of nowRail that make the whole system work. Now, this particular version of nowRail is 1.5.4. It's not been released. It won't be released because it will eventually turn into 1.6. But in this sort of update, you can see that I've got RFID data because one of the projects I'm working on is nowRail being able to work with RFID tags. And you'll see that from previous versions, we've got set the master clock time, we've got Wi-Fi channel changes. I think that's from 1.4. You see these different versions going back. Now, if we look at that control panel on the workbench, that was released when nowRail was at 0.9, and you can see here there are only 8 message types, whereas in this current version there are now 13 message types. But what happens within nowRail is, if a particular board receives a command, let's say this version receives a command for message type 13, all that this board will do is totally ignore the new command. It just says, I have no idea what that's about, and even though it's for my layout address, I don't know what it does, So I'm just going to ignore it. And that means that if your particular board doesn't need a new function that's been added, you can just leave it exactly as it is, and it will ignore all of these new functions. And that's why sometimes when new versions of nowRail come out, so for instance, when this version comes out with RFID tags, I can assure you that the loco controller code will not be updated, because the loco controller doesn't have anything to do with RFID tags. It'll just ignore that, and I'll eventually update that when a new feature needs to be added to the hand controller. So one of the things with the nowRail system, if you have a board that's working on your layout, there is no need to update that board unless there is a new feature that you want to add. Now, on my own layout, this did lead to some quite interesting situations in that I had DCC-EX running at about 0.7. I had the right-hand side of the layout running on 0.9, as was the control panel, and the left-hand board, I think, was running on 1.3.3. And I only updated all of those items when I wanted to test the encryption, so I had to update all of my boards. However, if I just wanted to add a sketch, if we go to the nowRail user setup H, if I wanted to keep my boards, if it was a home layout and I didn't need encryption, I could just comment out the encryption, comment out the Wi-Fi master clock change, comment out the Wi-Fi channel 1, and the 1.5.4 would still work with my 0.9.0 and even my old 0.7.0 sketches, because I would have turned off new features that would have been required. So if you don't need new features, you can just turn them off, and the brand new sketches will work with all of your old sketches. Because after all, we don't want to be updating our layouts all the time. I don't want to be taking my boards apart, pulling out the ESP32s and updating them. I want to get on with new things and build new bits to my layout, and only update things as I want to add new features. So the good news is, probably 95% of the time when a new version comes out, you don't need to do anything. Just ignore it and just use the new features if you want them. However, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through how you update a sketch if you do need to update one to add a new feature. And to do that, I'm going to use that control panel. And the reason I'm going to use this particular control panel is it's got a lot of code within it. It's got the neopixels. It's got a load of GT911 stuff. I've got custom functions in here. So if you like, there's a lot of work that's gone into this sketch. I'm now going to upgrade to, not that one, we're going to upgrade it to version 1.5.0, and I'm just going to show you just how simple that is to do. So on the left, we have the old sketch. On the right, we have the new sketch. The first thing I'm going to do is do a save as, and I am going to save this as 1.5, and we're going to call it the point panel version 4. That's just so that I know what I'm talking about. Let's get that saved. Right, first job. Obviously, I've got some libraries and some bits and pieces here, and obviously I've got the address for my test bed. So all I'm going to do is everything above the setup, I'm going to copy, come over here, everything above the setup, paste. That's that bit done. Right, let's come down to the setup, and exactly the same process here. You can see that I'm adding all of these buttons. Then I do a little trick just to check all the neopixels are working. So once again, all I need to do Let's just get that one out of the way so I can get there. There we go. Copy all of that. Have I got it all? Yep. Coming back over to the setup. Let's get all of this other stuff out. There we go. Paste that in. That's all of that lot done. Coming down to the main loop, you can see that it's absolutely identical, so that I don't need to do anything there. So that is the first screen completed. Obviously, click the save just so that it's all made it. Now the next screen is the custom functions, and how you do this really depends on how many custom functions you have used. Now for this particular sketch that's running this touchscreen controller, the only function that I'm using in the custom functions is the now panel update. So for something like that, all I realistically need to do is find the bottom of the function, select it all, copy the whole thing, Control C, come over into custom functions. There's the now panel update, paste that in, click save, job done. Very, very easy. Now that's because I've only used one particular function. Now if I was upgrading, let's say, the touchscreen controller, the touchscreen controller uses far more of the custom functions than this particular sketch does. I'll be honest, if I was transferring that over, I would literally copy the entire page. It would just be a case of Control A, Control C, come over to this lot, and I would Control A and I'd delete it and then paste the whole lot in. And that's it. Any new functions that have been added, I can always add them in later. But by doing that, I've got all of the functions, the custom functions, exactly the same way as they were in the new sketch. If there was a specific new function that had been added, so let's imagine in this new version, we've got this as a new function and it got deleted. Somehow it got missed. That has no effect on nowRail. If you delete any of these custom functions, it will not upset the code whatsoever. So no need to worry about that. So that's why you can copy your old custom functions straight into your new custom functions. Now, once that's done, I don't need to worry about nowRail.cpp and nowRail.h. They just take care of themselves. So we now just come over to the nowRail user setup.h. Now, if we look through the touchscreen, I had uncommented the wire library and the GT911 screen. Now you'll notice in this version here, I've also got these items uncommented. That's because in this new version, I want to be using these new features. That's the whole reason for updating this sketch. I need to add these so that this touchscreen controller works with my new system. So all I now need to do is come down through the setup. There we go. There's the wire. Scroll down, GT911. Those are the items that I then need to uncomment. Save that again. Now all I need to do is select the correct ESP32. It's just using a dev module. He says, looking for it. There we go. I'm on port 15. And that's it. Now all I've got to do is upload the code. So the sketch has now uploaded. As you can see on this particular panel, I set all of the near pixels to blue when the system first starts. That's because from my point of view, if I was coming to the layout, I wouldn't know what position anything is in. So I don't take the risk of trying to save the old settings. So this is my traverser. This would move my traverser to its different positions. We can now see also that the various touch points are working for my turnouts. So that is how you upgrade a sketch in nowRail. So updating sketches is relatively pain-free, and obviously you don't have to do it most of the time. Now, coming back to the nowRail website, just one other thing that has been added, apart from the latest version of nowRail, we now have a nowRail Facebook page. And the goal of setting up the Facebook page was to enable people to ask more questions, to sort of set up a little bit of a community, and I'll also use it to keep people up to date with the latest mods. I've actually been doing some work on the case for the hand controller, just some little changes and improvements being made to that. But it just allows people then to have a little bit of a community and ask others how they are working with the system. When you do want to join, it is a private group. The reason for that is I'm trying to keep the dreaded spam bots out of the Facebook group. So it's going to ask you a question. It's going to ask you what the latest version of nowRail is. Take a guess. It is 1.5.0. Whatever it is, just put a value in. All I'm concerned about is I'm trying to stop bots coming into the system, because we just don't want rubbish in the system. So if you could answer the questions, that would be really helpful, and I'll get you admitted to the group as quickly as possible. So that's it for today's video. It's a very, very short one, just trying to show how you would update a sketch in nowRail, and again, when is it necessary to upgrade a sketch. As I've said before, most of the time it is not necessary to update your sketches. Just leave them as they are until you need to use one of the new features, but write your new sketches with the latest version. Hope that all makes sense, and again, any questions, please leave them below the video, contact me on the Facebook group, or use the email off the Digital Town website. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.